water, air, fire, and earth. For thousands of years, the four peoples lived in harmony, in peace, who needed Avatar. The Avatar is the only master of all four elements and the guardian of the delicate balance between peoples. When one Avatar is killed, its spirit is reborn in a new body, creating an eternal cycle. After the departure of the last Avatar, his incarnation had not yet appeared to the world, and the Fire Lord believed that this was the ideal moment to try to take over the entire world. First of all, he wants to eliminate the only one who can get in his way. An Earth Mage who has entered the territory of the Kingdom of Fire steals a scroll containing information about the impending attack. Knowing that Sozin is planning a war, he tries to escape, but the guards pursue the warrior. Sacrificing himself and using magic, he gives the scroll to the messenger and fights with a dozen soldiers, but loses in an unequal battle. Meeting face to face, Sozin burns the warrior of the earth, but before doing so, he reveals a great deception. In fact, representatives of the element of fire are not planning to attack the kingdom of earth, preparing a strike against a completely different people. Aang is a 12-year-old boy who lives in the southern air temple. Possessing incredible strength, the boy demonstrates his talent and soars in the air, causing delight among the inhabitants of the temple and Gyatso, his good-natured teacher, who became his best friend. Gyatso asks Aang not to miss training because, despite his talent, the guy needs to learn a lot. Soon, residents of other Air Kingdom villages arrive at the temple to celebrate the appearance of the Great Comet. A little later, the leaders of the Kingdom of Air meet in a meeting to discuss the approaching war. Knowing that the Kingdom of Fire is about to attack the Kingdom of Earth, they decide to send a detachment of soldiers to help them. Aang, despite his age, must lead the group, since he is not only a unique warrior but also a boy who must become the Avatar, having conquered all four elements. Gyatso believes that it is too early and Aang is not ready, but the council is convinced otherwise and asks to talk to the guy, revealing the truth to him. A little later, Gyatso invites the boy to the temple, where he talks about how the Avatar is alternately reborn in each kingdom. Now it's the turn of the Kingdom of Air, and most likely, it is he who is the next Avatar, who needs to learn a lot. The boy is not ready to come to terms with the new reality, since he must leave his home, abandoning his friends and teachers. In the evening, Aang cannot sleep and goes out into the yard to communicate with his flying bison. Appa is always ready to listen to his rider and support him in difficult times, although he cannot say a word. Realizing that he needs to think a little, Aang flies on Appa as far as possible from his home so that he can be alone with his difficult thoughts. At the same time, an ambitious military officer from the Kingdom of Fire leads an army to the Kingdom of Air. Knowing that almost all representatives of the hostile kingdom have gathered here in honor of the holiday, the commander is preparing for a difficult battle in which none of the opponents should survive. Soldiers of the Kingdom of Fire attack the southern air temple and engage in battle with monks defending themselves with magic and the elements of air. Gyatso realizes that Aang is in danger and tries to find the boy, but he is nowhere to be found. In a difficult battle, the warriors of the air element find themselves weaker and lose their lives one after another. The commander is ready to incinerate anyone who gets in his way and destroys everything around him. Gyatso saves the children and hides them in the temple, but the commander and the soldiers of the Kingdom of Fire follow him. Having met one-on-one, the commander takes the life of Gyatso, since the Great Comet makes the Kingdom of Fire stronger than its opponents. Meanwhile, Aang decides to return home, but is caught in a storm, as a result of which he ends up in the water and goes to the bottom along with the flying bison. The village of Wolf Bay is one of the havens of the Kingdom of Water. Now there are no magicians here, and the only representative of the unique possibilities is a young girl named Katara. Her older brother Sokka watches over the village after their father went to war against the Fire Kingdom. Having gone fishing, a brother and sister end up in a snow cave where they find a strange ice ball. At some point, the Avatar emerges from it, who immediately loses consciousness. Realizing that the boy needs help, Sokka and Katara hide him in their village, not realizing that the beam of energy was seen by everyone around him, including Zuko, the exiled crown prince of the Kingdom of Fire. A little later, Aang comes to his senses and talks about what happened to him. The grandmother understands that these events happened 100 years ago, and the boy spent all this time frozen in the ice. As it turned out, during this time, the Kingdom of Fire completely destroyed the Kingdom of Air, and Aang was the only survivor. Moreover, the Kingdom of Fire has captured almost the entire world, but the kingdoms of water and earth continue to hold back the enemy, doing this with all their might. Katara supports Aang and shows her amazing abilities when suddenly Zuko's ship arrives at their village. Sokka tries to protect the villagers but loses in a fight with the exiled prince. Aang defends Sokka and the village, agreeing to surrender voluntarily. Finding himself locked up, the boy steals the guard's keys and Soon escapes from the ship. Katara and Sokka, Using Appa, help Aang escape and flee into the lost air of the Southern Temple. Here the boy sees what happened to his house 100 years ago. He understands that he needs to accept a new essence and become an avatar so that human sacrifices are not in vain and order begins to reign in the world again. Zuko is furious and only Uncle Iroh is able to calm his nephew, who missed Aang and lost a notebook with precious notes. Meanwhile, Aang, Katara, and Sokka find a flying lemur in the bag, as well as a package given by their grandmother. In the sacred scroll, the girl finds spells and training instructions that will allow her to better cope with the element of water. Realizing that Aang is the new avatar capable of saving the world, Sokka and Katara decide to help the guy at any cost. At the same time, Aang, dreaming of understanding his essence, offers to go to Kyoshi Island, the place where the last avatar was born. Once on the island, the trio encounters aggressive warriors from an elite female squad. Kyoshi warriors guard the island and are not happy with strangers, but they receive guests after learning that there is a new avatar in front of them. Yukari doesn't have much confidence in the arriving guests, but her daughter and the leader of the warriors persuades her to let them stay here for 48 hours. Zuko and Iroh try to find the escaped Aang and turn to Zhao for help. Tsuyuki shows interest in Sokka and falls in love with the guy. Meanwhile, Katara is training to control water and invites Aang to help her with this. The Avatar is not ready for training, as he is afraid that infinite power will bring more grief than good. Zhao learns that a new avatar has appeared in the world and personally goes to Kyoshi Island. Zuko and Iroh realize this, setting out after him to be the first to capture the avatar and deliver him to Fire Lord Ozai. Sokka also falls in love with Tsuyuki and trains with the girl, dreaming of kissing her. Aang turns to the late avatar for help Kyoshi to understand his purpose. The bell warns of danger as Zhao and his soldiers land on the island, followed by Zuko and his uncle. Aang cannot come out of his magical state by communicating with the deceased Kyoshi, so the inhabitants of the island have to fight the warriors of the Kingdom of Fire without his help. Katara protects Aang, but she is still too weak and loses the fight to Zuko. The forces are not equal, and it seems that the end is near, but Aang takes on the form of the Avatar Kyoshi to repel the attack and force Zhao, Zuko, and Iroh to flee. Kyoshi Island thank Aang for saving them and giving them faith in the future. Saying goodbye, Tsuyuki kisses Sokka and gives him her metal fan. Sensing that the Northern Water Tribe may be in danger, Aang, Katara, and Sokka head there. Zuko and General Iroh seek the help of Commander Zhao to help them find and capture the Avatar. Zhao agrees, but at the same time writes a letter to Ozai, warning the leader of the Fire Kingdom about the appearance of the Avatar. A group of rebels from the Kingdom of Fire decide to infiltrate the palace to take Ozai's life. A young girl helps them, but it soon turns out that she is the king's daughter, and they are all trapped. The guy warns that their sacrifice is not in vain, since the Avatar has returned. Enraged, Ozai destroys the group, setting them on fire. Azula learns from her father that her brother Zuko has found the Avatar and decides to stop him at any cost. Katara continues her training, but not all magical abilities come easy to her. Heading north, the trio spots the city of Omashu, the Earth Kingdom, on their way and decides to stop there. Zuko and Zhao try to track down the Avatar using hidden spies living in neighboring realms. It is extremely difficult to penetrate the city due to security, but local resident Jet helps the trio avoid thorough inspection. As soon as Aang, Katara, and Sokka are in the city, an explosion is heard. Katata and Aang use magic to stop the fire and prevent loss of life. At the same time, the boy sees that many have suffered and decides to take revenge on the representatives of the Kingdom of Fire. The explosion nearly injured a guy named Theo, but the trio saved him. The grateful father and chief mechanic of the city invites them to his place to relax. Upon learning that the Avatar is hiding in Omashu, Zuko and his uncle decide to infiltrate the city. In the evening, Katara is training and notices that the mechanic is collaborating with a spy from the Kingdom of Fire. Jet invites the girl to stop the spy and fight him. Helpers from the squad fighting for freedom neutralize the warrior of the Kingdom of Fire and take him prisoner for interrogation. Theo and Aang climb the mountain from where they throw bombs and realize that this is done by local residents, not enemies. Katara gets to know Jet better and begins to trust the guy. It becomes clear that someone is a traitor here, but Katara believes that it is the mechanic, and her brother suspects Jet. In a personal conversation, a guy from a squad of freedom fighters admits that he is behind the explosions and wants to overthrow the weak king. Katara and her brother prevent a real attack by extinguishing a fire arrow flying into a can of explosives. Meanwhile, Azula writes a letter to Zhao and asks him to serve her, promising a generous reward. Aang comes face to face with Zuko and engages in battle. The Prince of the Kingdom of Fire cannot use magic, as he will be exposed and captured by the guards of the Kingdom of Earth. Because of this, he is unable to defeat the Avatar, and at one point releases flames. Uncle decides to sacrifice himself and attracts attention so Zuko can escape the city. Aang tries to put out the fire using the power of air, but the guards capture the new Avatar, seeing him as a potential threat. Aang and General Iroh find themselves in the same prison, where they can talk to each other. The Avatar asks Uncle Zuko to come to his senses and stop the stupid war. But the man believes that there is no end to this, until there is victory or defeat. Soon the general is taken away to become a worker in a terrible place as punishment, and Aang is sent to meet the king of the earth element. Zuko enters the castle and finds out about all this, deciding to save his uncle and going after him. Katara and Sokka decide to save their friend at any cost and learn about underground tunnels leading inside the castle. Having met the king face to face, Aang recognizes him as his old friend with whom he communicated 100 years ago. Bumi became a strange and peculiar king who lost his sanity due to the war. Recognizing the unchanged Aang, who has become the new Avatar, Bumi greets his new friend and offers lunch. Jet tries to stop Katara, but the girl rejects him and uses freezing to immobilize the guy. Despite their old friendship, Bumi despises the Avatar since he abandoned humanity and disappeared for 100 years instead of preventing the war. In order for his comrade to understand all the pain and suffering that they had to experience, Bumi subjects Aang to a series of difficult tests. Meanwhile, Katara and Sokka find themselves in a dangerous tunnel and suggest that they need to go to the light. The guards watching Iroh constantly beat the old general, thus trying to take revenge for everything he has done. Iroh, despite his cruelty, was once a good man, but the loss of his son changed him. Soon Bumi offers the last test, a one-on-one fight in which only one of them will survive. Meanwhile, Katara and Sokka find themselves at a dead end and see a huge blind badger in front of them. The brother and sister flee for their lives, at one point holding hands. The badger does not attack them, since he does not see anything, but he feels love and is ready to help them get into the castle. Bumi fights with Aang, but at some point the young Avatar is faced with the choice of saving himself or a friend. Katara and Sokka come to the rescue, resulting in everyone surviving. Zuko frees his uncle, and they leave the city by boat, and the Avatar enlists the help of Bumi, after which he and his friends set off on a further journey. Aang, Katara, and Sokka soon find themselves trapped by the Fire Kingdom warriors, but use their skills to escape them. A few minutes later, the trio notices part of the burned forest and heads there. Here they notice a girl and follow her to the village, learning about her problems. People here disappear and find themselves in the world of spirits, as the line between the two worlds has become thinner. The Avatar promises to bring people back, as he can travel between the worlds of the living and the spirits. Azula is angry because her father wants to pass the throne to his son. Meanwhile, Zuko continues his search for the Avatar with all his might, realizing that Zhao also wants to catch him for his own benefit. Finding the perfect location, Aang transfers his consciousness to the spirit world, but accidentally takes Katara and Sokka with him. The trio finds themselves in an otherworldly world where everything is controlled by a person, Stealer, and an evil spirit named Coke. Having met a talking owl, Aang learns that he tortures people with fears, after which he devours their souls, so his friends need to be careful. Zuko and Iroh receive valuable information in one of the villages and recruit an experienced mercenary to capture the Avatar. Meanwhile, Aang, Katara, and Sokka are forced to separate due to an encounter with a huge monster. Katara sees the past and learns that her mother gave her life to save her. Sokka sees his father and realizes that he is disappointed in him, not considering his son a worthy warrior. Aang sees the house, but realizes that none of this is real. Having escaped from Coke, he meets Gyatso, whose soul is stuck between worlds. He asks the Avatar not to blame himself for what happened and to find the old Avatar Roku, because only he can help defeat Coke and return his friends to the world of the living. Leaving the bodies of Katara and Sokka under the care of Appa, Aang goes in search of Roku. As a result of a mutiny on the ship, the entire crew comes under the command of Zhao, who received the post of admiral. Zuko is saddened by this decision and offended by the betrayal of his team for ignoring his orders. Aang arrives on the island to meet Roku, where he is greeted by 5 monks. The former avatar was from the Kingdom of Fire, so the monks greet the guest with hostility and dream of taking the boy's life. One of the monks is against such methods and saves Aang by leading him to the statue of Roku through a secret door. After beginning to meditate, Aang contacts Roku to discuss Koha. The old avatar admits that he stole his mother from the face stealer who gave people their external differences. Aang wants to save his friends and realizes that this is a valuable thing with which he can organize a deal. On his way out of the room, he will be captured by June, using an animal with paralyzing bites. A little later, the bounty hunter hands the avatar over to Zuko and his uncle. They decide to hide the boy, but it is too late as Zhao has tracked them down and takes the avatar like a challenge cup. At night, an unknown person enters the castle grounds. The man in the blue mask defeats the guards and frees Aang, after which they attempt to escape. An entire army, including archers, are trying to stop the unknown warrior and the avatar, but are afraid of harming Aang. When the threat to the boy's life becomes real, they are released, after which the blue mask is wounded. Aang finds out that Zuko was hiding underneath and helps the guy hide. As it turned out, 3 years ago, Zuko was kind and did not want human sacrifice. His father punished him for this in a duel and left him with a burn on his face. The people Zuko protected became his crew on the ship. Upon learning of this, the crew returns to Zuko's command and joyfully greets the prince. Meanwhile, Aang returns Koha's totem to his mother, gaining back Katara, Sokka, and the villagers, who were given life and freedom by the kidnapper. The ship's commander reports to Zuko that they want to catch him as a traitor. He escapes, but it turns out that this is Zhao's trap. As soon as the prince sets sail on the boat, it explodes. Meanwhile, Aang, Katara, and Sokka reach the Northern Water Tribe, who joyfully greet the Avatar. Having met Princess Yui, Sokka falls in love with the girl and tries to get to know her better. The next morning, the Northern Water Tribe begins preparing to fight the Fire Kingdom, asking Sokka and Aang for advice. Young Aang admits that he has not yet become a full-fledged Avatar, since he does not know how to handle the elements, with the exception of the element of air. Katara meets with a teacher who teaches how to control the element of water and learns that women are prohibited from fighting, but she wants to learn martial arts. Aang turns to another former Avatar for help, hoping he can help unleash incredible power. The Avatar of the Water Tribe refuses to help, since in the war with the spirits he received a wounded body and lost a loved one. Having met again, Sokka realizes that Yui is already familiar to him. Only she appeared in the form of a gray fox, who directed him on the right path. Realizing that they are in love with each other, the couple appreciate each other. Zhao approaches the north and prepares to attack the tribe head-on, without fear of resistance. Iroh realizes that he is suspiciously fearless, as if someone is behind him, but does not realize that it is Azula. Meanwhile, the princess gives up her training and asks her father to give her the freedom to conquer the world. Iroh realizes that something terrible is coming and tells the surviving Zuko, who is hiding on the ship, about it. Katara does not want to stand aside and challenges the main teacher to a duel. Having been defeated, she deserves respect and proves that she is ready to fight with the warriors of the Kingdom of Fire. Soon, the inhabitants of the Northern Water Tribe see the soot, realizing that the enemy is already close. Trying to be proactive, Katara, Sokka, and Aang attack one of the ships. Having destroyed it, they rejoice at the victory, but soon realize that there are thousands of such ships and they cannot cope with them. Soon, the fire elemental warriors begin bombarding the area with fireballs. Katara and other women deserve the right to take part in battle, since any force will not be superfluous for defense. The king of the Water Tribe trusts Princess Yui Sokka, realizing that the guy loves her and will do everything to protect the girl. Meanwhile, Zhao decides to act cunningly and enter enemy territory through the air. He specifically attacks during the full moon, since on this day, the spirits that give the enemy strength come out into this world and become physically real. Zhao plans to take the life of the water spirit, believing that this will give him victory in battle. The old avatar of water appears to Aang to inform him that his knife, created in the spirit world, is somewhere nearby and can do something terrible. While running away from the fire, Sokka and Yui see a small flying lemur crushed by a stone. They rescue the animal and take it to the source of power to heal the lemur. Zuko infiltrates enemy territory to try to capture Aang. At the same time, Iroh and Zhao land near the source of power to take the life of the moon spirit. Zuko meets Aang, but Katara decides to delay the enemy, causing the attack on herself. At the same time, the Avatar is trying to save the spirit of the moon, who has taken the form of a fish. Iroh realizes that Zhao is evil and also tries to stop him, but it is too late. Zhao captures the white fish and then stabs it with a knife, killing the moon's spirit and taking away the power of the water element tribe. Realizing his destiny, Aang gives himself to the ocean spirit so that he can take out his anger and destroy the fire warriors. Zuko and his uncle are running for their lives when they suddenly notice Zhao. The prince attacks the traitor admiral and beats him, after which he learns that the father hated his son and kicked him out in order to prepare his daughter for the throne. Taking advantage of a moment of weakness, Zhao tries to take Zuko's life, but Iroh again defends his nephew. The evil ocean spirit destroys the enemy, and Yui gives her life to bring back the moon spirit. Order is restored, so Aang can return to his physical body and become the Avatar. In the morning, the inhabitants of the north say goodbye to the dead and prepare for a new war. Ozai is not disappointed, because his true goal was different: to destroy the kingdom of the earth elements and capture Bumi. A new war is coming soon, and it will be even worse. Thank you for watching. For your likes and subscriptions. See you very soon.